Good evening. I'd like to call this Tuesday, September 5th, 2017 meeting of Middletown City Council to order. If you please stand and join me in a moment of meditation and the pledge allegiance to the flag. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ms. Skank, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Bronston. Here. Mr. Bohannon.
Here.
Mr. Moon.
Here.
Mr. Picard.
Here.
Mayor Mulligan.
Here. All right, our first agenda items, citizens' comments. I've received one card this evening. I'd like to invite Mr. Abdul Shakur Ahmed down to the podium.
Thank you, dear.
Good evening. If we get your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Abdul Shakur Ahmed. I live at 1413 South Main Street here in Middletown. Good evening.
Good evening.
It's a grand occasion today. I'm coming to share with you some information about what's coming down the pike for Middletown, Ohio with the National Park Service. The Historical Society is going to be making an application with the National Park Service for the National Underground Railroad Network to Freedom program. We had submitted the application back in 2011, and the introduction says, summary, tell us in 200 words or less what is being nominated and how it is connected to the Underground Railroad. The Underground Railroad Monument, which is located in Lakeside Park, over here on Verdi Parkway, was created to recognize Middletown, Ohio's participation in the Underground Railroad. The monument highlights the significance of the Miami-Erie Canal as an underground railroad route through Middletown and documents the names of Middletown African-American citizens who provided safe shelter in their homes on North Main Street, right here behind the courthouse up to the railroad tracks. That area on North Main Street, for fugitive slaves seeking freedom in the north. We've shared the history in the past about what Middletown was, founded by abolitionists, and they had an African American settlement that was here. There's a DVD that has been made, and it reads "The Long Path to Freedom." African-American settlement in Middletown, Ohio. This project involves the creation of a 1-hour documentary chronicling the settlement of African-Americans in the southwestern Ohio city of Middletown. The documentary will trace the origins of slavery in America from 1619, the anti-slavery movement, and the abolitionists who made it possible, the Underground Railroad and its many routes through Ohio, the trails and stations specific to Middletown, the American Civil War, the emancipation of the slaves, reconstruction of the Union, and migration of African Americans to the North. The documentary will follow the growth of Middletown after the Civil War and into the 20th century, emphasizing the development of an African American culture in the community. Now, this time period was 1820 to 1860. So The Long Path to Freedom is being produced by Sam Ashworth and Abdul Shakur Ahmed in cooperation with the Middletown Historical Society. It will be presented in DVD format and features gospel music by local musicians. The DVD will be made available to all schools in the Middletown School District and will be available for purchase through various organizations. You can be a part of this unique project by becoming a sponsor at any level of donation. All donations will be made to the Middletown Historical Society and will be tax deductible. Help us tell this important Middletown story by making a donation to Middletown Historical Society, The Long Path to Freedom Project, 56 North Main Street, where the address has changed since then. But I left information, a packet, to be copied for you, so all the council members will get it. And then we have this breaking news: Great Miami, Stillwater, and Mad Rivers named National Water Trail System. So what has happened, the Great Miami River has been designated through the National Park Service as being very significant. So the program is jointly administered by the National Park Service and U.S. Forest Service in conjunction with a number of federal and not-for-profit partners. So
Great.
our new River Center, all of downtown, everything that's going on. Yesterday I did a 4-hour walk of the Underground Railroad in Middletown. So we hope
Thanks
to
for the
share
updates.
this.
We appreciate you coming down this evening. Thank you. Thank you. All right, with that, we can move to Mr. Atkins for our city manager reports.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I've got 3 items on tonight's agenda. I'll start by asking Mr. Jeff Repper to come up and give us a presentation from the Middletown Young Professionals on a potential project to renovate Miami Park.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Thanks for having me. So I'll be mindful of your time on the agenda. I have a plan for today, and I'd like to engage in a dialogue as you see fit to answer any of the questions that you might have after reviewing the materials that we submitted for the dog park. So the park is a comprehensive park renovation plan. The last time I came here, I talked just strictly about the dog park, and so that was harder to get going than it was to get a full park renovation strategy enacted. And so the white paper that we submitted talks specifically about the dog park, but I've worked with members of the city's leadership to develop a comprehensive plan to renovate the entire Miami Park park. And so we took that, and this first slide here shows some of the highlights of the renovation. So in addition to carving out a portion of the real estate there for a dog park, we also have in place some ideas to change the equipment and to add some features that the area residents thought were important to the park after having a chance to talk with them about it. And some of the highlights I think that are important to discuss from a dog park. That's what my vested interest is in the dog park. The young professionals have been working on this for some time now. I think near to 3 years. And so the features that I'd like to highlight specifically as it relates to the dog park are the sections to separate big dogs and little dogs. That's pretty much a requirement. All the ideas that we have for this dog park are not original to me or my organization. We read about what are key features and must-haves, and separating those from large to small is one. The last feature that I want to talk about right now is the dog washing station. So nobody around here has anything like that. There's other dog parks that people could drive to today. If you live in Middletown, you could go to Westchester or Hamilton. But nobody has a dog wash station. So when you think about, what are we doing for Middletown and why are we doing this in the first place, it goes along with the attractive entryway, is that this isn't just a fence, for a dog to make a mud pit. This is something that turns into a nice feature that Middletown can, have some events around, be proud of, and attract people from the area. Part of the white paper showed that that there's a great deal of population where this would be the closest dog park to them. So to the north, some to the south, and definitely to the west. So for people that are interested in socializing their dog and get value out of those things, it's another thing that Middletown can have to bolster its offerings to citizens and bring in people from outside. So on the next slide is just a concept. So these are all concepts, and I want to reiterate that. So we're ultimately asking for a resolution to move forward with this renovation, and in order to do that, we wanted to propose a concept. All right, and so you see the two sections in the entryway and how it sits in the park. So it's an existing tennis court there. The residents had some mixed ideas about whether we should keep that or whether we should include a basketball court. As a citizen, I see those as nice features for a park to have, and I drive past it and I see kids playing basketball, so I think those are nice, but they say no. So this is a concept, right? The playground equipment and the fencing is new. We're able to utilize some of the existing fence there, to help curb costs and that sort of thing. inside the white paper, I break down in large buckets what the anticipated costs are, and my organization is committed to raising the funds specifically as it relates to the dog park. And so it was an interesting experience for me as a non-public member of the city to speak with the residents in the area. So I was able to do that, and I was interested to see what they had to say. Generally, the citizens were supportive. They like the idea. They think if you're going to put some money into the park by where I live, I like that. There were concerns about, are there still going to be places for the kids to play and that sort of thing. And everybody asks me, who's going to clean up after the dogs? So, I was able to answer those things. Some things that we didn't think about, we thought about upgrading equipment and those types of things to make the park better. They thought that if there was some additional lighting and some sidewalks so that they could walk around, that they would like that. And so we brought that back to incorporate into the larger plan. And so that's basically what I have to discuss today. That's the white paper in a nutshell. It's what we've done. So we've been to the park board multiple occasions, and we've garnered their support for this at the Miami Park. We think it's a good centralized location that could serve a greater community. So I know that the first reading's today, and then so we'll commence fundraising if the resolution moves forward. And at this time, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Any questions for Mr. Repper or Mr. Atkins?
I had a notation here, and we'll be talking about this later, of course, but you're not asking us for any money tonight. You're asking us for permission to get started on fundraising.
That's right. So I was hesitant to ask any. A lot of people have called me and said, "How can I help do this?" And I was hesitant without a resolution from the city to be able to move forward with this in the first place to accept any money. So the Middletown Young Professionals is a registered nonprofit, so we're able to raise that money, a tax-free donation. I think it'll give us a strong position to ask people for what will amount to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $125,000. So just the resolution to move forward, and then we'll go through the appropriate channels, whatever those may be, to get this plan approved, and then start construction once we have the appropriate funds in place.
Any other questions for Mr. Repper?
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Appreciate the updates and good work on that.
Your Honor, second one of last, excuse me, ask Amy Vittori to come up and give an update on the Middletown Visitors Bureau.
Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for having me. We really wanted to come with just an update where we've been in the past few months since we convened this new board. I made some slides, and it was very difficult for me. I apologize. Thank you for helping me. I think first and foremost, as we convened this group, we kind of decided to take it down to the studs, really reformulate, reorganize, or re-engineer how this group worked. We spent the first few meetings sorting through just where we had been to learn about the organization and figure out what we wanted to do, either the same or differently. So those first couple weeks resulted in probably what you saw in terms of relieving the executive director of his role and then moving forward with our group to create this new mission statement, and from there, the goals and strategies to achieve it. So first and foremost, we worked through a bunch of different exercises. We've got a great board, so that's a testament to your choices. Good job. 12 people who are very active. We have meetings every 2 weeks, and everyone for large part is there. So people are very engaged, very creative, and very excited about being part of this organization. So this is the mission statement we came up with: promoting Middletown by telling the vibrant and authentic story that attracts visitors to enjoy and experience our community. So to a degree, we were making sure that we encompassed really, I think, the intention of this board, of this council, I always get the words wrong, to create this organization, but then also really think about today where Middletown is and where we need to focus. So the promotion part is obviously inherent in being a visitors bureau, but I think the vibrant and authentic story is where we really started to think about what makes us important now. And we all know where Middletown is in the media and in the news, and I think we see an opportunity to help tell a different story that's going to bring people to Middletown and see the Middletown we all know and love. We've recently kind of come up with, okay, how do we achieve that? So now we are talking about what are our strategies. So these are the 4 things that we recently adopted. First would be an in-kind marketing support program that's application-based. So historically, you'll probably recall there was a grant program that awarded monies to organizations. That didn't always, I think, work out in the way that the organization intended. And I think if you step back and look at best practices right now with funding organizations, people are talking about things like sustainability. So when we really looked at that, we said, what are we trying to do? And we really thought about events and the people who are hosting them, and how do we best help them? And we thought about a model where, and again, this is out there, we're not that smart, it's best practices, meaning we stole it. There are people out there who are funding events with in-kind help. So we're basically going to teach people how to fish as opposed to just handing them a check. So what that means is instead of us writing you a $10,000 check every year, what we're talking about doing, and this is top level, we still have to drill down into how this works, but what we're talking about doing is instead saying, okay, tell us your need. And if that's $10,000 worth of help, we're going to give you that help. So maybe that means this is year 1. We need to help you with a logo. We need to create a whole Canva suite, which is just an application of your fonts and your colors, and teach people how you create a marketing program for a successful event. And in doing so, hopefully we help them learn how to do it themselves. So maybe in year 2, they come back and ask for $5,000 of in-kind help. Maybe by year 3, they don't need us anymore. So what we're trying to get away from is just being a slug line in people's budgets, really where money is fungible, and the question is it really being used for marketing, and is it being used for effective marketing? So we feel like we have the opportunity to take people's events to the next level and help them succeed in their marketing to the point where they don't need us anymore. So that's the idea. Now we have to drill down, which we're working on. What's that actual application? What's a point system that goes along with it so it's transparent? What's that rubric that then we can make our decisions by? But that's where we are today in terms of just kind of changing how we are helping people. Secondly is a project partnership program. So things come up like the Great Miami Riverway project, which are obviously more of a kind of one-time, larger, regional initiative. And those are things we want to plan as well. When we talked about who we are as an organization, we talked about leading. You know, let's be the first organization into some of these larger projects that can hopefully inspire other groups to jump in as well. So the Great Miami Riverway is an example of, in case you're not familiar with it, which you probably are, but it's basically tying together all the communities along the river. And they've hired an executive director, and they're putting together basically a marketing program that includes wayfinding, signage, other promotions, and just ways to get people up and down the river and then going into all the communities along the way. So I think almost everyone except for maybe one community has committed. And so it's somewhat like saying, hey, we're a regional player, let's get into this thing. But secondly, for us, it really spoke to our mission of promoting Middletown and bringing visitors off that trail. So we will always leave open this kind of project partnership pot and have an application for that. So again, we've made the decision, but now we need to work into the application, and then we also obviously need to look at our funding. How much are we spending in these pots? So we've just decided on the 4 things. We haven't decided on how they're actually executed in terms of application or how much money we're putting to each one. That'll be in the next few weeks. The third way we achieve our mission is through internal branding and promotion. So establishing MVB, which I know CVB, MVB, we've been talking about internally since we don't really have convention capacity at this moment. I'm very aspirational, so I'm pushing for it, but we've kind of been talking about, you know, to be kind of clear about who we are and what we do now, MVB might be a more appropriate name for the organization. So that's why it's referred to that here. So basically creating our internal branding and promotion. So setting us up, relaunching us as an organization, all of our digital assets, all of our social media channels, you know, how are we doing outreach for the organization? And then that's creating the platform to push through all the events and partnerships and everything else that we do going forward. And then lastly, we'll achieve our mission through operating costs, overhead, salary, etc. Thanks. Okay, short-term goals, I've somewhat touched on them. We're going to build up our brand and relaunch the organization. We're going to create the digital assets to promote the organization in the city and events. And then we're going to link up with local businesses and organizations to collaborate. So I think those are the things that we see are like the low-hanging fruit, what we need to get going right now to start churning and burning this organization. When we get to longer-term goals, we're looking to increase the positive reputation and attractiveness of the city. So I think that's pretty clear. We're going to forge regional partnerships to grow tourism within the area. We've met with Mark Heckey from the Butler County Visitors Bureau. I think if any of you follow them, you can see they're doing a fantastic job. So I think being able to work with them and other organizations like them to continue to grow, bringing people to Southwest Ohio will behoove all of us. And then lastly, to make Middletown a place to visit, return, stay, and live. Okay, so next steps. Aside from what I mentioned earlier in terms of digging deeper on those 4 ways we're going to execute, we are looking to hire a digital consultant. So the reason we're doing this is because when I talk about branding and marketing in our organization and creating a platform, that is a very specific skill set. And it almost always is not someone who is also an executive director of a nonprofit. It's kind of like doctor, train conductor. I mean, there's really not a lot of overlap. And I say that in all disclosure because I do the former. I am a brand and marketing person. So I think we know going forward, to get this done right, we need to hire a consultant who can come in and take the work we've done in terms of the mission statement. We've kind of outlined the brand and what it looks and feels like and run with it. And then start to build this platform. Because what you can see again in best practices, and if you look at something like Butler County's Visitor Bureau, it's really about the quality of content. It's back to that vibrant and authentic. And that happens through very thoughtful, very time-consuming work to create images and video and written content, and then look at the back end of SEO and analytics and meta tags, and it's really a full-time job. And again, not one that an executive director could or really should be doing. So we really want to set ourselves up to succeed to get all that in place. We're anticipating that might be a 3-month contract, but we're also anticipating if it is a person or a firm with a person, that they potentially may want to stay on as we continue to then run this kind of teaching people to fish program. Because that work is exactly what we'll be doing for everyone that applies for help from our organization. Secondly, we are now looking to hire an executive director, and that person will be a more traditional role that you would expect, building relationships and partners, overseeing this digital content. So again, if these two people are on the same page, you know, maybe that relationship continues. If not, this executive director would work to fill that role with someone else. And then managing our calendar and essentially growing the organization to increase our city's tourism. So I think we're looking for someone who's creative and dynamic. If they have good relationships, great. But I think they need to understand how that world works and have the heft and wherewithal to put together things like a weekend in Middletown where you kayak and skydive and you eat and you stay. And there is all of that here. There's a lot of assets we need to mine. I think we need the person who can do it in the right way. So this is where we are today. Any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Fattori? No? Okay, certainly appreciate the update. Looks like you've got a lot going on and been moving stuff forward, so thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Your Honor, the last thing I wanted to bring to everybody's attention is we've had, over the last 3 or 4 weeks, a fairly robust discussion about building security again, given the shooting of a judge a few weeks ago and, frankly, some of the other public events that have happened throughout the country. Judge Howard and her staff and MPD have been having a fairly robust discussion about what we should or should not be doing with the city building and the area around there with our security. Middletown Police did a report, I want to say 3 or 4 years ago, with some very specific recommendations. Most of them are fairly straightforward and will be handled internally. Better locks, some entryway doors, some things that are nuts and bolts. The one that I really wanted to bring to your attention, though, is it's the combined recommendation of the court staff and police, and frankly mine too, that we take a look at closing down the front drive in front of the city building again permanently. We're just concerned that it is an ongoing security risk. If someone wanted to show up in an Oklahoma-style bombing and pull their van up there and get out and blow the building up, it would be easy to do. You could walk in, shoot people, walk right back out, get in your car, and be gone. It's the type of thing that we hope never happens, you hope you prepare for, but we're always trying to balance that between safety and public access. You know, we could turn this into an armed camp, and, you know, you can't get into the city building without going through a metal detector. I think that might be a little expensive and a little tough, but again, maybe part of that answer is just to shut the walk down so you can't get that close with a vehicle or with a gun. Again, you can't get too close to the building, hopefully without being seen. If we go down that path, I would take a long look with all staff, frankly, and look at adding some ADA extra spots. We'd look at redesigning how you can get into the building to try to make it easier, because if we're going to make you come a longer distance to get in, we have to try to make it obviously as easy as we can for people with disabilities of all kinds. So it will take a lot of work. It'll take some reconfiguring of the parking lots perhaps, and perhaps even some walkways that might long-term benefit people getting in. Wanted to bounce that off of council tonight. You don't have to give me any feedback tonight. If you want to think about it, that's fine. We would like to start working on that plan and what that might look like. Again, it's a balance between the safety and access, and we think it's time to shut that down as we get a plan together that makes sense permanently and shut that drive down. So if there's any particular heartburn from council, any questions, any comments, again, you don't have to give them now, but we certainly are welcome to take them now or, again, later by email or phone, any that we would have, any questions, any concerns from the citizens. We will do our best to address them, but we're going to be trying to making some upgrades in the building to make sure that both staff and the public are safe when they're in the city.
Okay. Any initial thoughts from council?
I would say go ahead and move forward with getting some preliminary estimates and costs and figures.
We know we have problems with the pavers and stuff, and so this might be a chance to, again, a piece of that might deal with all that at one shot. You might get two or three things done with one plan.
I agree with Councilman Moon. As a matter of fact, that's why our police department are in here. My concerns were not fearful out of fear, but my concerns were there are so many things going on around the country right now that we need to be proactive and a little more cautious than we have been in the past. So I would say come up with something, come up with a plan. And my concern is that we have one door in and one door out. I know there's a, you know, something back here,
right,
but I think that's closed off. Are the steps closed off in the evening behind us here? Are there, isn't there a staircase? Yes. Yeah, so then we do have one way in and one way out, and that was my concern.
We will start working on that. I'd like to thank Judge Howard for her work on this. She's been very helpful in working with staff. Steve Longworth helping us start to have this discussion. I think it's the right time to have it. It's the right time to take action. So we will get to work on that.
Will this include the drive at the, I guess, the east end of the building, the U-shaped drive as well, around the little
I
park?
think all of that is, yeah, it's time to look at all of it and make sure that we set it up one time. Again, to give people the best access that they can to the building, but at the same time, keep people far enough away that hopefully we can stop bad things from happening if they want to. So that's all I have, Your Honor.
Very good. Anything from council for Mr. Atkins? All right, we can move on to our consent agenda then, Ms. Skank.
For your consideration this evening, we have the approval of the city council minutes from August 15th, 2017. To confirm board and commission appointments of Bill Jones to the Midpoint Library Board and Roger Connor to the Park Board. To receive and file board and commission minutes from the Park Board of March 6th, May 1st, and June 19th, 2017. Of the Historic Commission from June the 22nd, 2017. From the Board of Zoning Appeals from July 5th, 2017. From the Board of Health from July 11th, 2017. And from the Civil Service Commission of July 20th, 2017. To recognize a proclamation that September is Prostate Cancer Awareness Month. To authorize the city manager to enter into a contract with Aeromark Incorporated to proceed with the 2017 Pavement Markings Program. To confirm the personnel appointment of David Baumgardner to the position of Engineer, Department of Public Works and Utilities, Division of Engineering. To confirm the promotional appointment of Robert Blake to the position of Equipment Operator, Department of Public Works, Division of Water Maintenance. To confirm the resignation of Councilman Dan Picard from the Self Board. To confirm the appointment of Councilman Tal Moon to the Self Board. To approve, receive, and file the final plat for Renaissance 2 subdivision, Section 5.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion for the approval of the issues and actions as listed on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Picard?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Bronston?
Yes.
All right, that brings us to council comments this evening. We'll start with Mr. Picard.
Thank you, Mayor.
All right, Mr. Bohannon.
Mayor, no comments either.
All right, Mr. Moon.
Nothing this evening, Mayor.
All right.
Well, I
Ms.
guess I'll
Bronston.
keep it to a minimum.
Yeah.
There are so many things going on around town, and we all know that. But the mayor and I went to the Southwest Ohio Philharmonic at the Woodside Cemetery Arboretum. It was a beautiful day on Sunday evening, and the music was great. A lot of musicians from our Middletown Symphony started their own 501c3 and wanted to continue having music here in Middletown. And I think it's one of the great things we can add to the MVB for our Middletown Visitors Bureau, and to keep quality of life alive and vibrant here in Middletown. And I'm looking forward to the Arts Festival this weekend. I think that's on Saturday. So those are my comments.
All right, thank you. I just wanted to mention that we had a Suncoke Community Advisory Panel. I serve on that group that kind of keeps tabs with Suncoke and activities, and I want to compliment the fire chief. He was there to present information on our heroin response unit, the quick response unit, and shared kind of the actions we're doing. They're interested in things beyond just what's happening in Suncoke. In terms of some of the talking bullet points we had from the summary, the Southwest Ohio Air Quality Agency completed a full audit of Suncoke and found that the Middletown operations are in full compliance. They had no planned venting events during June, July, or August, so nothing real unusual there. They did, again, talk about encouraging folks, if folks are struggling with drug addiction, to reach out and contact a member of the QRT or call 911 if they're concerned about an overdose. And then, more excitingly, we'll be presenting the Choices program as part of the middle school to 8th graders on, I think, September 11th and 12th. It's a really interesting program, nationally based program that encourages kids to make the right choices about staying in school, and everything from job choices and everything depends on kind of getting that high school diploma, and encourages folks to do that. And I think we've seen some good success with that. I know the community advisory panel and Suncoke employees really appreciate and enjoy that time in the schools. Then lastly, the CAP is going to be participating in the Great Miami River cleanup on Saturday, October 8th. So we have that coming up this fall. That, again, is always a fun time. I think we may be moving out to Dix Creek area. They're working on that, so won't be quite as muddy or deep, but should be interesting to do. That's always a good time to participate in that regional cleanup. And lastly, I want to mention, Ms. Bronson mentioned the Arts Festival. We also have this Friday, the first Friday for the dogs downtown. Downtown's gone to the dogs. It got postponed with the rain last week, so should begin another good event Friday night. And again, probably competing with Friday Night Football, Friday Night Lights. But again, it's certainly good to see things going on downtown here. And with that, we can move to our legislation this evening. Ms. Cohen?
Thank you, sir. We have 14 items for your consideration this evening. There are a few that are listed as emergency. So prior to getting started, I would ask, consider a motion to waive charter requirements for 2 readings and 30 days to enactment regarding Resolution R 2017-17, R 2017-18, Resolution R 2017-19, Resolution R 2017-20, Resolution R 2017-21, Ordinance O 2017-38, and Ordinance O 2017-39.
I make a motion to waive the charter that requires reading on 2 separate days for resolution number R2017-17, -18-19, -20-21, and ordinance number 2017-38 and -39 to be declared an emergency measure to be read one time only.
Do we have a second? Second. All right. Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Picard?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Ms. Bronston?
Yes.
first section will have a second readings. First matter will be ordinance O 2017-36, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Board of Trustees of Franklin Township to provide fire services to certain residential areas in Franklin Township. And this is a second reading.
Okay. Motion to adopt?
So moved.
Okay, any discussion or comments? Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Picard.
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan.
Yes.
Ms. Bronston.
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Second matter will be ordinance O 2017-37, an ordinance amending chapter 872 of the codified ordinances. This is also a second reading.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt? Second. Any other discussion or comments?
I want, yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to confirm, that this is taxi cab, right?
Yes.
Taxi cab ordinance, that since it was changed, we don't need to have a first reading again, since
We are not required to have one. If you would like to have one, we certainly can, but we are not required to.
Typically, if there are substantive changes, we'd maybe start with another first reading, but I think these were, minor additions and tweaks is the way I kind of took them.
That was that
Ms.
liability
Bronson, did you
insurance,
have?
wasn't it?
Correct. They were insurance
The
requirements
changes
for
were to
the
attract
drivers.
the insurance.
Okay, any other discussion or comments? Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Mulligan.
Yes.
Ms. Bronston.
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon. Mr. Moon.
yes.
Mr. Picard.
Yes.
Third matter will be Resolution R 2017-16, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Middletown, counties of Butler and Warren, State of Ohio, for the period ending December 31st, 2017, from the general fund.
Do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second?
Second. Okay, we had a presentation on this last time as well. Any discussion or comments? Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Bronston.
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Picard.
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan.
Yes.
Next matter starts with matters considered as an emergency. Number 4 will be Resolution R 2017-17, a resolution accepting the amounts and rates as determined by the Budget Commission and authorizing the necessary tax levies and certifying them to the county auditor and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second?
Okay. Mr. Atkins, anything to add to the staff report?
No, Your Honor, this is, again, something we do each year. We pass a resolution, it goes to Butler County, they pass it, they send it back to us, and we pass it again. This is the last piece of the parcel. It does have to be back by October 1st, so it will require emergency passage.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bohannon.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Picard.
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan.
Yes.
Ms. Bronston.
Yes.
The next matter will be Resolution R 2017-18, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Middletown, counties of Butler and Warren, State of Ohio, for the period ending December 31st, 2017, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second?
Second. Okay, thank you. Mr. Atkins?
Yes, Your Honor, the Law Department has 4 purchase orders that were open for outside legal counsel in prior periods, and the bond counsel and some of our economic development counsel have moved firms. And so what happens when you have a purchase order, it has to be tied to the law firm or the vendor that it goes with. What we're asking you to do tonight is to let us release those purchase orders, and then we will reappropriate the money. Going to be used for the same purpose for the same lawyers at their new firms. We will reappropriate again, put this back into play. There's no effect to the general fund, to the legislation.
All right, thank you. Any questions, Mr. Atkins? All right, Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Mr. Picard.
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan.
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon.
Yes.
Ms. Bronston.
Yes.
Number 6 will be Resolution R 2017-19, a resolution to make adjustments to appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Middletown, counties of Butler and Warren, State of Ohio, for the period ending December 31st, 2017, and declaring an emergency. This is the airport fund.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Atkins?
Yes, Your Honor. The airport fund is an enterprise fund that we use to pay operating expenses for the airport. There have been a couple incidents that require us to take some pretty quick action. There have been lightning strikes out at the airport that have damaged 2 antiquated safety systems, one of the taxiway guidance lights, and some of the runway end identifier lights were struck, and they're damaged beyond repair. They are not covered by insurance. In addition, some of the rehabilitated office space in the Jets hangar has leaks in it, and we need to have some money available to go ahead and get those fixed as well. For the safety and operation of the airport, and so we don't have damage in those buildings, we are asking for emergency passage of this tonight.
Okay. Any questions or comments? All right, Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Picard.
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan.
Yes.
Ms. Bronston.
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
Seventh matter will be Resolution R 2017-20, a resolution authorizing the purchase of certain real property located at 1822 North Avenue, also known as 124 Charles Street, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do a motion to adopt?
Second.
Okay. Seconds.
Yes, Your Honor. I understand you all have received some calls on this, and so we'll try to elaborate a little more than we did on the staff report. I'll ask Lieutenant Cunningham to come up and give us an update on the police activity at this property, 124 Charles Street, and frankly, it's been going on off and on in several iterations over the last 20 years. Go ahead.
Thank you. This bar is located at 124 Charles Street, also at 1822 North Avenue. It's got two different buildings, addresses. It used to be two different houses. Back in the 80s, it was connected to be one bar. A lot of you remember it as the office lounge. There used to be a window in the office lounge. It's now a brick wall. I think someone was thrown through that back in the 80s. Point to that is after that bar closed, it was reopened as the Pink Panther. There was substantial problems out of that bar at that time. That bar was eventually closed after multiple nuisance complaints and investigations. It reopened as Miller's Lounge. That bar was a source of drug dealing, shootouts, drugs, arguments, fights, prostitution. It was shut down after a lengthy investigation. Then it reopened up as Bar Boca. And again, drugs, shootings, prostitution, consistent problem with this location. A nuisance abatement or a nuisance ordinance investigation is very time consuming, it's very costly, and unfortunately 2 or 3 incidents won't close the bar, won't be enough for the courts to look at a person's right to operate a bar compared to a few violations. It has to be a substantial amount to be overwhelming to take a person's livelihood away from them. With that, from our perspective, we have to let the crime continue to occur and spend the money to investigate it and prosecute it and get convictions, and then we can wait till the next time, and then the progression is substantial. It's overwhelming to have the evidence to close a bar, and that puts us at the reason we're here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, this is not a tool that I would recommend that we use often, but there are on occasion bars like this. The one that comes to mind also is the Grand Exchange. Every time that bar opened, it was a problem. Every time we had shootings there, we had drug dealings there, we had prostitution there. Eventually, it was simply removed the building. The building's gone. That building can no longer be there. The danger of not doing that in this situation is, again, that building is not in good shape, but it's sitting there full of bar glasses and a bar and everything else, which means if we're not going to take action to move forward on this, the owner will lease it to somebody else, and it'll open up under another name, and it'll be the same poor bar in the same bad location, and you're likely to have the same types of things that you've had over the last 20 years. We've had to close that bar 2 or 3 times. I would also tie this in a similar vein to the housing. We've talked about obsolete housing. We've talked about obsolete buildings. This building has no good use right now. It's been a problem in every iteration it's been on in the last 15, 20 years. This is one of those that you should get out of your housing stock. You should get out of your building stock. You should get it out of the city. So again, that location is not going to continue to be a problem for the Middletown Police Department or for the neighbors that live in that area. And so we are asking for you to take action tonight. One of the other questions I've understood you had was whether or not CDBG funding could be used for that. The answer is yes. I ran that program for 5 years as Community Revitalization Director. When we were approached by this, I looked at the regulations again. I had Kyle look at the regulations. Not only is it appropriate and authorized by the regulations, we don't even have to amend our annual action plan. It's already in there for demolition. It's approved. Even with that, I had Kyle go ahead and call Columbus, who does our CDBG funding. They also agreed that, again, this was well within the regulations. And because we're using it for demolition, we're using it for blight removal, we're not using it for renovation. like the senior center and some other buildings that we've had to do things. You can attach HUD money to it in a way that you have to keep doing things in the area. This is not one of those types of things in the regulations. We're using it to remove blight, and that has different rules on it. So we can resell the property, we can reuse the property. It is not forever a HUD property from now on. We checked all that out before we put it on the agenda for you.
Yeah, so HUD's not gonna make us run a bar there then?
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions, Mr. Atkins?
Yeah, what happens after we acquire it? Do we have a plan to make a pocket park or to parcel it off to the neighbors? Or does HUD restrict us in those ways as to the end game?
HUD does not restrict it because it's been removing for blight, because of the nature of the way we're using the funds. We can use it for anything we want to. I know Economic Development's had some discussions with people. I don't think we're far enough along into that process yet that I can tell you definitively how it's going to go. And again, this is not a process I would use on a regular basis. But in this thing, I think it's worth getting that bar out of the city.
With the definition of blight, is that our definition, the state's definition, or the?
That's CDBG, yeah, definition.
Anything else, Mr. Atkins?
The only other thing I would add is that we are asking for emergency passage. There is a purchase agreement in place, and there's some times in there that it would take more than, we need to get that moving so that we get the transaction completed if we're going to move forward.
Thank you. Okay, no other comments or questions? Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Mulligan,
Yes.
Ms. Bronston,
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon,
Abstain?
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Picard,
All right, motion carries. One abstention, okay. All right, Ms. Cohen?
The next matter will be, Resolution R 2017-21, a resolution authorizing the city manager to enter into an agreement with the Federal Aviation Administration for grant funding and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Atkins?
Yes, Your Honor. We are at the place now where it's time to do a new airport layout plan and airport master plan. That's a very extensive process that we go through with the FAA. The cost of that is estimated to be $429,000. FAA helps us out with almost all of it. It's a 95-5 split, if I remember right. I'm sorry, it's a 90% FAA, 5% ODOT, 5% city split on that. The city's portion of this will be only $21,469, and we are asking for emergency passage. There's a lot of work with GIS and things that could be done yet this year if we can get this going, and FAA is ready to give us the money and get started on it.
Okay, very good.
Mr. Atkins, just a clarification, because the supplemental appropriations for $137,000, we're netting out 21. I assume we're just going to get grant reimbursements, or is that part of the $150,000 that's been banked?
Jennifer, do you know the answer to that?
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Atkins? All right, Ms. Gank, would you call the roll, please?
Ms. Bronston,
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon,
Yes.
Mr. Moon,
Yes.
Mr. Picard,
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan.
Yes.
Next matter will be ordinance O 2017-38, and ordinance establishing a procedure for and authorizing a contract with Wolpert for preparation of an airport master plan and airport layout plan and declaring an emergency.
Okay, do we have a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Second, thank you. Mr. Atkins?
Your Honors, FAA is giving us the money to do this. There's also a fairly extensive RFP process and approval by the FAA of who can actually do that plan, who's authorized, and that process has now been completed. Wolpert got the bid. They also have been approved by the FAA, and that is why they are being selected tonight to do this plan for us, and we are asking for emergency passage again to get started as quickly as possible with the FAA money.
All right, any questions, Mr. Atkins?
We have that same matching basis with the 90%, 5%, and 5%.
Yes, this is the organization that will be executing that grant.
Right, okay.
Question regarding, we've had our master plan of the airport and some areas that we talked about, what we wanted to turn it. Does that all gel together with what they're talking about doing?
Correct. And the idea is you can't do any of that unless it's in your master plan. So the things that we've been talking about for the last 2 or 3 years, opening up Hook Drive and all the things that we've been talking about, now FAA says, okay, we believe you're going to do this. We like your plan. Now you have to put it in this form that we can understand it and we can approve it. And so they will start giving us grants to implement the things we've been talking about when this plan is complete.
Is this a 5-year plan, 10-year plan? Is there any limit of when you update it?
FAA kind of, the answer is
When
when
they tell you.
FAA, yeah, when they tell you, and as, depends on how soon you're gonna, either their regulations change, or you wanna change the use of the airport. It's not like the CDBG plans and some others where every 5 years you do your normal thing. This is kind of on a more flexible basis.
Okay. Anything else from Mr. Atkins? All right, Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Picard?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Ms. Bronston?
Yes.
Number 10 is ordinance O 2017-39, an ordinance amending the pay and benefits ordinance, ordinance number O 2016-40, and declaring an emergency.
Okay, we have a motion to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Atkins?
Yes, Your Honor. As you're aware, Law Director Les Landon is planning to retire at the end of this year. With that, we're going to need to make some changes in staffing to be able to continue to do operations. So we're going to add the position of staff attorney at the range of 185. That will primarily be an assistant prosecutor down in the courtroom. The other 3 assistant law directors will be taking on different duties as things move along here and Les moves back. And we are asking that you allow us to do that so we can get that position hired and trained before Les leaves at the end of this year.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Atkins?
So this will be a person that will be over the 3 girls, or
No, this will be the assistant prosecutor position.
under? Okay. Under. Gotcha. Who do we have going? Have we assigned anybody to take Les's place?
I'm sorry, I
Have
couldn't.
we assigned anybody to step into Les's place, or are thinking about it?
We are rearranging the law department as part of that. You'll see that as part of the budget presentation.
Okay. All right, that's just there for first reading. Ms. Cohen?
The next matter will be ordinance O 2017, excuse me, I believe the pay and benefits is an emergency.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. I glanced at the wrong item. That's why I
Yes.
get
Yes,
to
I
looking
believe
up.
that
Thank
one
you.
needs
So
a
we
vote.
do have our
Thank
motion
you.
or a second. Thank you.
Yes.
We gotta get these people paid, so
Thank you.
keep me on track here. So we have a motion or a second. So Ms. Kank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Moon?
Yes.
Mr. Picard?
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan?
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon?
Yes.
Ms. Bronston?
Yes.
And now we will move on to the first reading.
First readings, there we go. All right.
Number 11 is ordinance O 2017-40, an ordinance amending chapter 1456, chronic nuisance abatement of the codified ordinances.
Your Honor,
Seconds.
yeah, sorry, excuse me. In carrying out the enforcement of the chronic nuisance ordinance, staff has determined that some of the explanations and descriptions of the procedure are not as clear and concise as they could be. They've made recommendations to clean those up and make them much easier to understand. Also, the appeal process called for the public safety director to be the appeal officer, and since we no longer have that position, we are redesignating that to be the city manager or a designee, again, allowing that process to go forward without a directly public safety director.
Thank you. Ms. Cohen?
Next matter will be Resolution R 2017-22, a resolution authorizing the filing of applications for year 2018 with the Ohio Department of Transportation for grants under the Ohio Public Transportation Grant Program.
Mr. Atkins?
Yes, Your Honor, each year we have to apply for grants both to the state and to the federal government to operate our Pleasant transit bus system. This is the resolution that will allow us to make those grant applications for 2018.
Okay. All right, and 13 is related.
13 is related, Resolution R 2017-23, a resolution authorizing the filing of an application with the Department of Transportation, United States of America, for a grant under the Federal Transit Administration Act of 1991 as amended.
And this is the federal equivalent to the one you just seen. Again, this will allow us to apply to the Federal Transit Administration for 2018 grants for the transit bus.
All right, thank you.
And finally, Resolution R 2017-24, a resolution in support of a plan to improve Miami Park to include a dog park.
Your Honor, I'll just add to this, you saw the presentation from the young professionals this evening. I'm very impressed and pleased with how they've handled this presentation. They have come back and forth several times. They could have abandoned this at any time. They kept with it. They've been through Park Board several times. They've been out meeting with the residents around Miami Park. They've truly done this the right way, and they are ready to move forward with fundraising, assuming, and they would like to have that resolution of support so they can show people that the city's serious about moving forward with the process.
Very good. No, appreciate that work. So, thank you. That's all we have for legislation this evening. So our last item this evening is an executive session, so I need a motion of the authority of Ohio Revised Code 121.22 G1 to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of a public employee or official.
I'll move.
Second?
Ms. Skank, would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Picard.
Yes.
Mayor Mulligan.
Yes.
Ms. Bronston.
Yes.
Mr. Bohannon.
Yes.
Mr. Moon.
Yes.
All right, following our executive session, we'll be in recess to our next meeting in September 19th, these chambers. Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Good meeting.
6:30. Well, 25. Hell, over and under.
It should go fast. It should go down by 6:30.
I got a few updates, but we'll see. So. You'll note for